All right, we're talking Dover this weekend for the Cup Series. I consider it an intermediate track. I think you should very much use it as an intermediate track, and so on and so forth. But not going to really get into that discussion there. The main discussion that we need to talk about here is the issue of weather in the area. Now, there is a real chance that we end up getting a wash this weekend in terms of practice, and in terms of even the race, there's a real chance that if it runs on Sunday, it might be rain shortened. We might end up getting both these races, Xfinity and Cup Series, on Monday. Whatever the situation is, just rain the area for tomorrow, Friday, for on-track activity there for Xfinity Series, and there's weather in the area on Saturday, so for Q and practice and everything like that for the Cup Series and for the Xfinity Series race. Just a lot of weather in the area. So there's a real chance that we end up having the starting grid scored by this, with some slight changes in regards to Josh Berry and him not racing at Talladega and things like that. But for the most part, it'll be somewhere around here. Clearly, we'll talk about it in live shows and stuff like that. Your inside lane would be Group B. Your outside lane would be Group A. With that being said, when we look at Dover, now last year is probably, even to this day, is still one of the more tilting experiences. The fact that nobody was on the Toyotas last year that early, the fact that Hamlin was pretty much going to kill the field and got involved with Cody Ware, and just a lot of stuff happened. I'm very, very, very annoyed with how last year ended up playing out, despite the fact we were right on a lot of things. Dover's my favorite track. I love how it looks. I love how it races. I think this is the definition of what a racetrack should be: high banking, fast. You don't have to go 200 miles an hour to be fast. But look, Dover rules. Dover's awesome. It's a shame that we don't go there twice a year. But that's just how it is. When we look at how I believe Dover is going to race, I want to focus on the Hendrick cars and the Toyota cars this year, and in this race. Now, I understand that we have, Kyle Busch up front, we have Bell up front and stuff, and clearly they are going to take priority. But I still believe that we should be focusing on people like Byron, on people like Larson, especially in situations where we have a lack of practice here. Take a look back and see how people performed at Las Vegas specifically. I mean, when we got to remember that we really haven't ran a real intermediate track since Las Vegas, okay? So let's go ahead and kind of look through what I would look through as to point me towards people, to have me look at. I mean, I'm kind of all over the place. Las Vegas and Fontana, that's all the way back, 8 races ago and stuff like that, because we've been to Phoenix, we've been to Atlanta, Talladega, short tracks, road courses. It's been a long time, and thank God from here on out we have Dover, Kansas, Darlington, Charlotte. This is a great month of racing. This is probably the best month of NASCAR racing here, and just for me personally, it's going to be where I put a majority of my money in on this year outside of plate races. I mean, really outside of Daytona in the summer and Talladega in the fall, it's this month right here that I'm going to be invested in heavily for NASCAR. And so when we look at these two races, let's look at Las Vegas and let's look at Fontana, because those are the stepping stones that we need to focus on. We had Byron and Larson be the two fastest at Las Vegas. Byron was basically the 14th best car at Fontana. He ends up getting involved in an incident. Kyle Larson ends up getting involved in an incident as well. They finished 25th and 29th respectively, but they ran a lot better than just what they end up being at. We have Suarez, who was stupid consistent at both the races. 3rd best car at Fontana, 11th best car at Las Vegas. That's what we want to see. I mainly just want to see consistency between the two races. And if there isn't, what was the reasoning? What was the situation? Was it a yellow? Was it, did they lose track position late in the race? Did they have an issue? Whatever the case may be. But as it stands right now, Byron and Larson still are the guys that I believe that you should primarily target. Once we get past that, Keselowski, oddly enough, had the 9th best car at Fontana, 14th best car at Las Vegas. Keselowski has a really, really good chance of possibly going under the radar this weekend and talking about just how fast these guys were and how they performed. Let me scroll all the way up here. Those are the two main guys that stick out. Past that, like once we get past those guys, who are the people that I want to focus on? Well, clearly, Chastain, best car at Fontana, 6th best car at Las Vegas. That's great to see. Harvick, 6th best car at Fontana, 9th best car at Las Vegas. That's great to see. Martin Truex Jr., 11th best at Fontana, 4th best at Las Vegas. Denny Hamlin, 5th best at Fontana, 5th best at Las Vegas. Alex Bowman isn't in the race. So the reason why I jumped in and just named those individuals off is because those are the primary guys that I would have as candidates to lead in the Dover race, to get fast laps in the Dover race, and to potentially be at least a fast lap and lap lead getter in your lineup. So between those drivers I just mentioned there, I want to at least try to have 3, if not more, if possible, in my lineups and stuff. Not necessarily a hierarchy and priority. Mainly because also when we in a race without practice and stuff, I think and we've seen it more and more, that ownership condenses on track history. Ownership condenses on, and I guess it really does track history, but ownership will condense specifically on where they're starting, who's closer up. And so when we take a potential look at the starting grid for this weekend's race, Byron should carry a bulk of the ownership, if not Christopher Bell. It should be those two guys. As I said, Keselowski makes a lot of sense, but I doubt he'll carry a lot of ownership there. But the reason I'm bringing that up is, if Byron is the primary guy who's going to carry ownership in the top half of the field, okay, because Larson is going to carry some, but people can see that he has some place differential, yada, yada, yada. Who are other drivers here that I think we should kind of prioritize and kind of get to more than what the field is going to do? Okay? Who is that? Who's a guy that we should primarily look at that I haven't mentioned or anything right now? The guy that I think it is, the guy that I think you should lean more to than what I think the public will do, at least right now, is Kyle Busch. Okay, 2nd best car at Fontana, 10th best car at Las Vegas. Ran phenomenal at both of them, really. I understand that Kyle Busch didn't have, he came off of Fontana and didn't lead, a ton at Las Vegas, but I necessarily wasn't expecting that from him. Okay, now that we've had some races under their belt, now that we've seen a steady progress in terms of consistency, in terms of speed that Kyle has been showing, I think Kyle Busch makes a lot of sense. Very similar to last year, why I was on the Toyotas so early before everybody else was because we were trying to pinpoint who would be taking those swings up during the month of May, during the summer months, and heading on into the playoffs. I think Kyle Busch is that person. I think he is a guy that you should be on before the field gets on him, before he really shows us enough speed to back up how he's running, if that makes sense. So Kyle Busch makes a lot of sense to me. Chastain makes a lot of sense to me. In terms of looking at this potential lineup, Hamlin, we clearly, Ross Chastain, clearly. I mean, at this point, we're talking about all the people on the teams, like Harvick and so on and so forth. You should be trying to get to Truex, you should be trying to get to Suarez. A lot of these guys fall into place differential situations. I'm trying to pinpoint, early lap leaders that I'd want to focus on, things like that. And it really does make me want to lean more towards Kyle Busch. And the reason is just, it's not even necessarily that he's going to be starting first. It's that he's been up there. He's been consistent, Bell and Keselowski. And actually, I'd probably want to try and be over the field on Keselowski just in general. That's mainly how I'm looking at it. When we look back at the previous races at Dover, when we look back at last year, as I said, we lost a... Oops, let me move that. When we look back at last year's race, we had Hamlin, who was fucking whipping the field's ass. He doesn't finish on the lead lap. He loses 19 place differential spots. Past that, we have fast laps and laps led being spread out between Chastain, Kyle Busch, Elliott, Truex, Bell, Stenhouse, Bowman, Larson. It really it went all over the board with all the yellows. I don't think we're going to see it necessarily lean that far. If it does get into a situation where it starts leading to a lot of people being spread out, and not a lot of people being spread out, but a lot of fast laps and lap led being spread out, then defer back to the list that I just started going over, when I started going through who I'd want to look at in terms of this race here. But I think the 2021 optimal makes a lot more sense with Larson, Bowman, Elliott, Byron, mainly just carrying all the fast laps and laps led, with Larson, Bowman, Elliott, Custer, Suarez, Quinn Houff being in the optimal lineup. That's another thing here. We get 400 laps. I think it makes a lot of sense to look towards very cheap plays. That's just how it is, especially if you nail the lap leaders. And landing on a cheap value play makes a lot of sense. When we start going back, like the 2020 fall race, we have Harvick basically just killed the field. Everybody else past that just got some fast laps. Place differential came through. In the spring race for 2020, we had 5K. We had Ty Dillon, 5,500. Actually, the optimal lineup only used $4,800. But it was Hamlin, Truex, Kyle Busch, Austin Hill, Chase Elliott, Kevin Harvick, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., all getting fast laps, all getting, except Harvick, all getting laps led points. It was more spread out. So when we look at Dover in terms of optimal lineups, in terms of building lineups and everything like that, that's why I think when we enter this race in general, it makes sense to have interest in Bell, Kyle Busch, Chastain, Harvick, Truex, Hamlin as your primary guys up front, with Keselowski, Larson, and Byron mainly kind of rounding that off. That is what I would use as your lap leader in your basic pool. Past that, it's just filling it in with place differential, filling it in with whoever is cheapest, and so on and so forth. When we look at the DraftKings pricing and everything like that related to this race, Larson, Byron, 11.5, 11.2, that's perfectly fine, very much justified. Bell 10.3, but as I said, Kyle Busch, man, it makes a lot of sense at 9.6. It really, really does. Keselowski, $8,400, makes a lot of sense. Really, really does. Suarez, $7,800. That's a misprice in my opinion. Absolute misprice. When we look at the cheap plays, we finally have a situation where we have men's salary back for the first time in God knows how long. BJ McLeod at $4,500, like it. Actually, really, really like it. Brennan Poole at $4,600. This is a week that makes a lot of sense. I mean, Yaley's at $48,000, Ty Dillon's at $47,000, but look, BJ McLeod at $4,500. If you're in a situation where you want to use all that salary and you like that lineup and you want to pay up for Larson, you want to pay up for Byron, and you want to pay up for somebody else who's an early lap leader and so on and so forth, I would absolutely be okay with you going down to the men's salary range, and I will probably end up doing that in some of my lineups. I will absolutely be playing BJ. I will absolutely be playing Brennan Poole down there. I'll be playing Ty Dillon as well, but I'm just saying, look, use the salary. Do not be afraid to use all the salary this weekend. Specifically, if you are nailing a lot of potential lap cars or potential cars who can lead laps, I would absolutely go for it. As I said, kind of different because I think it is going to be a wash. I don't exactly know when this race is going to be ran. Defer to the live show on my final opinions on all that type of stuff. But that's really where I am right now. Coming off of Talladega, we're gonna have a lot of place differential possibilities in this race. It really does. Not that it ruins the slate, but when we come off of a plate race and then enter a race weekend where they don't qualify, and it's based off how they kind of finished at those plate races, those really are different slates in general from the norm. You have a drastically different type of approach. You have a drastically different type of assumptions going in and everything like that. And so these are more so, situations where I'm much more willing to be overweight on people that the field just don't want to play. That, we might not have enough data to back it up. We're kind of leaning on assumptions more than probably we should. That's why Kyle Busch, in my opinion, I think he makes a lot of sense. When we defer to track position, who has good track position that people might end up gravitating towards? It's probably Logano, probably Byron, probably Kyle Larson. Harvick has all top 10 finishes with a win in fourth place in 2020, but like Kyle Busch, 727, 11th, third, not screaming, a fantastic play, not screaming that guy. I mean, that guy is Chase Elliott, that guy is Logano, that guy is Byron and Larson based on track position, based on track history. Kyle Busch looks good, man. I like Kyle Busch. So that's where I'm at right now. We will, as I said, we'll reorganize and discuss this more on Sunday in the live show. But yeah, thank you guys very much for listening to this very fast, very quick preview, and I will see you guys this weekend. Check out the Xfinity Series video as well. Consider joining the Patreon if this week goes well, or if you just had a good week in general on May 1st, and I will see you guys in the next video that you view me in. So see you guys then.